Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. No child or adult ever seems unhappy about starting their day with Sesame Street. I want to thank Bloomberg American Health Initiative for having our street to yours. There are so many villages out here today. We hear it takes a village. And today we see so many villages from different places, from different sectors. And I thank you for allowing us to bring our village, the Sesame Street Muppets, to yours. Sesame Street, of course, is a utopia. And it's a utopia because the humans in charge of making it put children's wellness at the center. We could all create utopias, right? We're in the fortunate position of really being able to realize one. Sesame Street's mission is to help children grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. And that plays out in this website, sesamestreetincommunities.org, which is free and bilingual and full of resources to help providers, parents, and children through the toughest challenges of their lives. Why did we develop Karli, and why did we look at parental addiction? We know that in all children under age 11, 1 in 8 of them is struggling with a life that involves a parent coping with addiction. And that's just the ones that are diagnosed or being treated. We know that there's not a lot of materials for the very youngest children out there who and showing their perspective on the issue. And we know that the trauma of growing up in a household like this involves chaos, unpredictability, erosion of trust, and at worst, abuse and neglect. And that those adverse childhood experiences can affect children over the course of their lifetime, their mental and physical wellness. So if you took all adverse childhood experiences together, and of course the list goes on, that makes them the largest public health threat of our time. This all started 50 years ago. We are now at our 50th anniversary, 3 generations of viewers. It was the late 60s, the backdrop of the war on poverty, the civil rights movement, and the literacy crisis. Children entering kindergarten not having had the same advantages as their peers knowing their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So our founder, Joan Ganz-Cooney, asked this question. If television could be used to effortlessly teach children beer jingles, could this magical medium be used to teach children the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and give them a solid start in kindergarten? And the exhaustively researched answer was yes, luckily. TV, of course, is not the only medium in children's lives now, but it's no longer enough. So Sesame Street in Communities is about embedding these resources and these messages around resilience and wellness into communities through a network of local and national providers like yourselves. We've always been about the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and as children's needs have changed, we do a lot more work around social emotional learning and especially resilience. So how do we do this? Well, the Muppets make our job really easy. Of course, Oscar is all about honesty, right? He's teaching children this valuable life lesson that we all have negative emotions and that's normal. Ernie and Bert are about acceptance. Besides these core characters, we've developed some Muppets who we call the faces of resilience, and Karli is one of them. They can tackle heavy topics with a light touch because Muppets can do what humans cannot. They can break down stigma. They can talk about the really hard things that kids haven't heard other kids talk about. Remember when Mr. Hooper died? Big Bird was the one learning about that, about grief and about the permanency of death. So we developed this lime green little girl who just said hello to you. Karli. Karli is our ambassador for the parental addiction topic. She and her family have moved through their challenges, and now she's in a position of displaying survivor's pride. She wants to show other kids what she has learned, what's helped her, and let them know that they're not alone. So she's offering help, hope, and healing to this generation of children. There are a lot of interesting considerations that go into the building of a Muppet. She's 6.5 years old because she needs to be able to articulate some important ideas that a younger one like Elmo possibly could not. Physically, we needed her to look more like a real kid than a very monstery monster. We wanted kids to be able to see themselves in her. So she wouldn't have the big spaghetti arms like Grover. She has a stance you see in her body language. She's a real kid. You see some vulnerability in her, but you also see some optimism in her open face. It's not the first time we've seen Karli, because she launched in the spring for our foster care initiative, because 1 in 3 children in foster care are there because of the substance abuse of a parent. So it was a natural extension to her narrative. You can find that also on Sesame Street and communities.org. We see her with a caring adult, Chris, who works at Hooper's store on Sesame Street. And we did this to convey the power of a caring adult in the life of a child. The single most protective factor in a child coping with the effects of trauma is the consistent presence of a caring adult. So the humans on Sesame Street have that job, but the other Muppets also have this job in letting each other know that they're not alone. So what do these humans and Muppets need to convey to children? What are these messages? We work with an expert board of advisors to help us boil down those messages. They need to know this child-friendly explanation that addiction is a sickness in the brain, not the kind you catch like a cold, that makes a person feel that they need to use drugs or take alcohol to feel okay. They need to know that it's not their fault. They need to hear that again and again, because developmentally, they're egocentric. They really will think it. That it's a grown-up problem, and grown-up problems need grown-up helpers. They need to know they're not alone. There are other kids like them. They need to know that it's brave of their parents to ask for help, that that's an act of strength, and that it's brave for they themselves to ask for help. They need to know that they'll be taken care of, that some caring adult will take care of them, and that they can take care of themselves. There are coping strategies they can use to help themselves feel better in crisis. And finally, this message of optimism, that challenges like this can help a family grow stronger, actually grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. It's also important for us to show her in documentary with real children. So these children live with their parents who have been in recovery for 7 years. They're in California. And Karli and Celia in the middle have developed a lovely friendship, seeing a lot of themselves in each other. And this family is not just surviving, but thriving. So this is part of the hopeful, optimistic, and aspiration-based approach that all of our resilience work uses. So now that the world has met her, what do we hope will happen? All of our work is exhaustively researched in both formative and summative research. So when we look at impact, we're considering what capacities are we building? What attitudes and behaviors are we changing? Are we building emotional competence in families? Are we decreasing stigma? Are we building confidence in parents and children? Are we helping them find more opportunities to have these tough conversations? Are we integrating best practices into our provider networks? Finally, please visit us at sesamestreetandcommunities.org. Again, free and bilingual. Please write to us and let us know what you think, what's working, what's not, what you'd like to see more of, how you're using it. You are the villagers on the front lines in your communities, and you are serving the most vulnerable children and families in the opioid crisis, in all addiction crises, and in many other public health crises. And the humans and the Muppets of Sesame Street are so honored to support you in your work. Thank you.